You don't have to be called daddy's little helper who's strong willed and make sure that the job gets done just right. Or daddy's little princess who's the best performer and always puts on an act for him to have the father wound. The father wound is universal, and this is deeply rooted into every person's relationship with men, but primarily with the father in general, being that the father is the primary programmer of the child's partial consciousness and the way that the child has really adapted to the masculine way of approaching life, which is being assertive, being structured, having a strong will, and going out in the world getting things done. Okay, the father is also a very nurturing uh, container for children. They make them feel safe. So when we look at the father and the father wound, we're looking at the personal father, men in general, this great archetypal figure of the father, which we can think about Christ and how, and not talking about it religiously, but just talking about it symbolically, we can see how Christ, the father figure, is always looking down on us, making sure that, we are moving forward in life with an honest heart, with genuine drive that is aligned to a higher purpose. Um, so, what I want to get into today is how do we heal this father wound? Because when we do this, we are healing our relationship to men. That's kind of the primary goal. However, if we never had a father who was here for us, if we had a father that was emotionally absent, physically abusive, there are many factors that play into this experience. If the father, was a certain way, well, then how do we heal based off of that? So it's kind of diverse, but what I want to do is just, to the best of my abilities, um, give you a general idea of how we can heal this father wound. Now, what I want to do is separate the father. Ugh, I hate that I'm even saying that because we are so multifaceted, but I'm separating the father into two characters or into two different energies. We can look at the father in a devouring sense. I call this the coach father, where he's always trying to influence the child in a certain way to get it done very specifically. And the emotional status of this father is so charged and it's so driven that it's a toxic enmeshment with the child in such a way that if you do this way, then I will give you even more of me. I'll make sure that everything is even safer for you. And what this does for any person is that it makes you feel like you have to constantly be on this certain standard. Like you have to always meet these expectations and be the perfectionist. And it's debilitating to any human to have to try and reach these standards that are inhuman. And they're really just basing it off of, that this father character is just basing it off their own trauma themselves. So, you know, if I can just quick side tangent, when I think of the man, like a man, when I think of the man and he is standing outside, he's trying to build his own house. And through this building process, there's a huge combat boot that's just following him in every move that he does. And so this man feels a sense of always being watched, but feeling a lot of pressure around getting the job done. That's how I perceive a lot of this masculine wounding, is that there's this big boot from a hierarchical system that is just waiting to stomp on it and say, sorry, you haven't completed your task, your time is up, goodbye, right? It's like Chronos and having to get the end goal, get the job done and make sure that it's like perfect in this amount of time, but it's unattainable. So, I feel like a lot of men have this pressure on them to do and to be and to, you know, be this certain person because they have the father, this archetypal father that's kind of hovering over them. Um, or so it seems, more of a shadow like figure that's hovering over them. And they carry this heavily, so with that image, I don't know what that's planted for you. We can look at the devouring father. We can also look at this colder father that was emotionally unavailable. He was always in his garage. He was working on all of his toys. He didn't pay attention to the family, and he was working. He was, this 9 to 5 patriarchal dad, at least in California. That's kind of the family dynamics that I grew up with. So it was very much a patriarchal system, barely see the dad. Mom took care of everything. And in this place, what mom says to the children is detrimental to their psychic development. How the child perceives dad. Is he actually here and caring? Is he an aspect of my life that I can count on? Or is he only here to just give us this structure, and everything else is a curious, measurement of his love? Like, what more is behind the scenes? So the father that is a little bit colder and aloof, he has a difficult time with the family system because he is trying to keep the family system contained and together, but he's so disconnected from it. So it's quite the paradox. Now, when he is detached or he isn't there, the absent father, this is a bit difficult to replace for a person who's working on the father wound, because you can't tell what the energies really are and if they're safe, if they're too much, if you're being overly assertive when you're being underly, I just said underly assertive. And all these different energies play a role with, how do I assert myself in the world, and how do I keep going when I never had any kind of encouragement or guidance as to where I need to go and what I need to do. So, both scenarios, whether it's devouring and you feel like you're just having to be small but still be this perfect person, or you feel like you haven't really been fulfilled, and you're, constantly questioning yourself and your abilities, and you feel like you are chasing after your own tail constantly. They both have their own importance, and this dynamic in your psyche is just whirling around trying to get you to fulfill what the father did not get to do. Now, when it comes to, physical abuse or sexual abuse, this also plays a huge role on a person and their ability to speak up for themselves, and their ability to feel like, uh, you know, they are important outside of just being the object of desire. So it's quite the exploration that we go down with the father wound. But how do we go into healing this now that we've kind of looked at the more personal father and understood our associations to this figure? What do we do about the healing process? Um, I've found personally with my own work is that having many different male friends who are very kingly, or who are very magician like, or who are more of a lover and nurturing, like having platonic male friendships that have fulfilled, certain things that the father hasn't, that will give the person, just the confidence to go into the relationship and be able to express the genuine self of being weird and a little imperfect and still be accepted. It's as though allowing these friendships to unfold gives the emotional, the physical, spiritual fulfillments of this father energy. And what it comes down to is that the feeling of this greater father who is demanding or expecting certain things. As humans, when we fall short to what these things are, these standards are, to know that even in our lowest place, we're still loved. We can still be a human who is, heavy and who has these shortcomings, and we could still be cherished and, held and given a certain structure within a relationship that they're not going anywhere, and you can be as you are and we can be as we are and still have a life separate from one another. Hey, you're on your journey, you're on your hero's journey, and you have your goals that you're going to accomplish, and I'm right beside you and I support you. And it's just this energetic support. It's this emotional, energetic, like full charge of, a really healthy masculine figure that can fulfill this father wound, right? You don't have to be perfect. You can be assertive. You don't have to play small for me or play so big that you're someone who you're not. And you also, in this neglectful state, like, you can try things that are new. And know that you're still supported. You still have some kind of structure to fall back on. So healing this father wound, it looks like a understanding of what your relationship to your personal father is, a little bit of a humanization to the father's role and a male's role in general, how men, have carried this strong patriarchal unconscious, I believe so, burden on them that they have to be this big masculine man, macho man who's taking care of the family. It's a lot. And in the humanization phase, being able to, let this individual have their story, and then for you to kind of reclaim or integrate these fatherly characters or these fatherly energies, and you filling this father role for yourself. There's a lot of reparenting that goes into this, and a lot of adjusting your mind's eye as to what you perceive as a good father or a healthy father or a righteous father, or I should say a right father. Um, it is a process of kind of humbling yourself down to really see clearly as to what this father is. Now, in my last video on the mother wound, I talked about needing to forgive. And, I sat with that a little bit, and I still believe that there is a forgiveness that has to be involved in the process with this parent wounding. But it may not be so much of forgiving the individual as much as it is forgiving the unknown and what the psyche does to people that have no idea their own complexes. They don't know their traumas. They aren't doing the work themselves. So it's more of like a forgiveness of the, I don't want to say ignorance, but the naivety. If I want to place people, the psyche at an infantile level, it's kind of a forgiveness around the energies and the weightiness of life. So if you want to forgive your father, you can. If you don't want to forgive your father, that's totally fine. But healing the father wound looks like being the father to yourself and being able to have strong connections that can replace the father wound, that can give you back the missing father and give you the confidence to continue your journey forward with assertion, being your authentic self. So, with that, I hope this video has supported you in some way, shape, or form, and I will see you in the next video.